What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Hobby Hotline. We are on episode 379 here, creeping up on 400. Pretty crazy. You know, one of the only shows I think in the industry with this many voices that has had this type of longevity. I am here with one of the, I would say one of the innovators, one of the original innovators here in the hobby, the man, the myth, the legend. We have Dr. Jim Beckett. Dr. Beckett, how you doing today?
I thought you were going to do Victor, a real innovator there as well, and diving deep into rookie cards. But yes, I've done a little bit of everything, Adam. Thanks for the kind words.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then we have another, I guess another man, myth and legend, one of the more knowledgeable people here in this industry talking about rookie cards, the definitions of rookie cards. We got Victor, True RCs. Victor, how you doing today as well?
I'm doing good, man, but don't tell nobody. They'll never believe you.
Want to say hello to everybody in the chat here. We've got Mad City Brew, always a staple here in the chat. We got Foul Ball, another staple, even though maybe a little bit of maybe likes to have fun in the chat a little bit there. We got Abel from Vegas, a ton of people. So like I said, at the beginning of these shows, I always like to see where everybody is watching the show from. So if you are watching the show, on YouTube, or I think it's on YouTube. I think we're only on YouTube here on the Four Collectors channel. Make sure you drop where you're watching the show from. I'm definitely interested to see all over the world. I know we've gone global a couple times. We had people overseas. We got people all over the United States. We have some great topics here to talk about. I'm just going to run through them quickly before we get into them. We're going to be talking about the World Baseball Classic and some of the other international competitions that have been going on over the past few months, and then some that are coming up in the next few months, and maybe how that's affecting the hobby. We also have a big announcement from Topps this past week where they said they're going to be including college basketball players into Bowman with NBA players for the first time. We're going to see a fully licensed product there. And then the hot topic that really has kind of taken over the social media and taken over a lot of what's going on all the platforms here. The interesting news that's come out about Whatnot. We're going to cover that in the second half of the show. So first, we're going to go World Baseball Classic. Venezuela, they win. This is now, it makes Ronald Acuna one of only three players, Buster Posey and Shohei Ohtani, and now Ronald Acuna with a World Series win and a World Baseball Classic win. Ronald Acuna, phenomenal player, very exciting for them. Unfortunately, they did beat the United States. Victor, I'll ask you this first. Did you watch the World Baseball Classic? What were your thoughts? How did you feel about the tournament as a whole?
I did watch. I'm a big fan of the WBC, although it's getting harder and harder with all the different streaming services available to us. To watch the tournament is quite the task. But I did watch it, did enjoy it. One of my favorite tournaments to watch. My takeaways on the whole thing is really, to me, Pujols made a legitimate case for him being a manager in the MLB at some point in the near future. DeRosa probably did not. There's a lot of things that I noticed with DeRosa's management style. A lot of things on social media being murmured. Of course, you can get away with a lot of things when you win, but when you lose, people tend to put you under the microscope, right? And this is the second tournament that the U.S. lost 3-2 was the final score. Kind of a stinger. This one kind of hurt, and I don't know about you guys, but that quarterfinal matchup between the U.S. and the Dominican Republic, that final strike was not.
Yeah,
no. It was not a strike, and those are.
Yeah, they would have been tapping the helmet there probably.
Yeah, they would have.
One of the ABS reviews on that one if we were playing in the majors. Yeah, it was. I mean, Dominican Republic going into that tournament, I thought was going to win. Like if you look at that roster, it's like if you were playing like MVP baseball. I don't know if anybody in the chat is, old enough to have played MVP baseball on like the PlayStation. But like, it's like if you turn off all the trade, the trade sliders and you trade all the best players to your team and then you sign them and then you go 62-0. It was like that. It seemed like that for the Dominican Republic. Same kind of question to you, Dr. Jim. What was your thoughts on the tournament as a whole? And, we saw some of the effects of certain players within sports cards, some players that maybe weren't as expected. But like, do you think that these international tournaments they obviously do have an effect on some of these cards, but do you think there is a future for international tournaments to have more of a mainstay when it comes to pricing here in the sports card industry?
I think it's terrific. It's showing the best players in the sport in Major League Baseball distributed out, presumably to their countries of origin. And even though North American baseball is the best in the world, the best players are not necessarily from America. And so Americans sometimes can be overconfident. The other problem I have, even though March Madness is the quintessential one and done tournament, but baseball has always been a series game. So you don't have one pitcher that could dominate. You've got to, to me, that's trouble. Some team could get on a roll, one pitcher or two pitchers or something like that. So, but I'm all for it. And I'd like to see additional formats. In fact, some of the other sports have all-star games and other kinds of competitions that divide out by nation. So I think that's good. It's also very ironic that we were beaten by Venezuela.
Right. Yeah.
And we beat them last fall.
Right.
And now they're taking it back on us. As well as Italy, which I was kind of surprised about that. But
yeah, Italy was another team that they had Jack Caglione as a guy, Florida guy that I am a fan of, plays for the Royals. He was on that team. I mean, Italy, the teams were very good this year. And I think that is one thing it seemed like all the teams had, like 3, 4, 5 players that were all like very solid. And, this is something that I think we've seen a little bit of a shift on. And I mean, Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. Do you think we have seen sort of a shift in the international competitions? Like, it feels like for a while, maybe way back in the day, people really took the international competition seriously. And then you kind of get into the early 2000s and you have that like USA basketball team that got like 3rd place at the Olympics. And it seemed like people weren't taking the international competition seriously. So do you think that is something that we will continue to see going forward, with like people wanting to play for their nations and take it a lot more seriously?
Well, like you say, 92, the dream team in basketball, that jump-started the programs all over the world to get better in basketball to compete with the USA. And they have increasingly. Baseball would be the same thing. In this particular tournament, and as well as the last one, it's just like the famous statement within the hobby. So you're saying there's a chance.
Right.
You can't just bet on the odds-on favorite of the USA. Now 2 times in a row, we've come up short, honorably short, but still as Americans, we're used to winning, and you've got to win out on the field. You can't win with PR. You've got to have the best pitching, the best hitting, the best defense. And many of the great players in Major League Baseball are from other countries. Those other lineups were stacked.
Yeah,
they really were.
Exactly. Totally agree. And I want to bring up this other graphic here that I think is relevant for cards. So the top sold a Tops Now set of all of the teams in the tournament, in the World Baseball Classic. Japan, obviously on top there. People want to get that Ohtani card. They want to get any of the rare inserts, the rare autographs that potentially could come from the Ohtani card. Then Team USA, they're in second with 20,000 total orders. Dominican Republic at 4,000. And then it kind of rounds out with Venezuela, Puerto Rico, and Korea, kind of all around 1,000. So, Victor, do you think that cards like this have a bit more of staying power in the industry? And I mean, this is maybe something that as someone who is really into rookie cards, somebody like me, I am really into numbered rookie cards that I think are more scarce. So like with there being 34,000, I don't know if we're going to get any rookies necessarily in there. But what were your thoughts? I don't know. Did you see these sets? Like, did you have any kind of thoughts on the overall process of, Topps coming out with these cards?
I did, and I enjoy them. This to me is more of like a commemorative set. I never really have gotten into like commemorative sets, but I do enjoy like the Topps Now, where they actually highlight a moment that happened, a big moment. That's the kind of Tops Now stuff I really enjoy and appreciate. But long term, I don't know, because everybody's interpretation of print runs is like, some people think that 200 is too many. Other people think that 10,000 is too many. Here, 34,000 sets. I mean, that's a lot. So
right.
As far as long-term sustainability, I don't think there's anything there as far as value, but I don't think that's what these sets are made for. I think this is more for the commemorative collector type situation. And for those reasons, I do think they have staying power. I do remember when the Cubs won the 2016 World Series, I have a couple of commemorative sets from that. And I love those sets. I love looking at them and reading the highlights of what happened during that World Series. And it's not for everybody, but it is for some.
Right. And the interesting thing here with Tops Now is I think it's either the third or fourth highest Tops Now card is actually the Jack Hughes gold medal winning card. Hockey has not, it's a very cult-like following here in sports cards. I would say that. They're very diehard, but the number of them is not as high as maybe other sports. But we did see, with this USA card, that people really wanted that one. Now, granted, there were also different refractors, and I think they mentioned that there was going to be a super refractor involved with that one as well. So overall, I really liked the World Baseball Classic. I think it's, I think Dr. Beckett's correct that like baseball is, we've gotten to the point where it's 162 games. It's the longest of all of the sports. And then each series is, 7 games, 5 games, depending on what round you're in. But one thing that I did see was that the World Baseball Classic Championship had more individual viewers than all 7 games of the NBA Finals. So I don't know if there is something there with these single game tournaments for baseball, or because, it's the same thing with football. It's like it's these single game tournaments. March Madness is another example. I guess maybe there's a place for both of them. But again, I would like to see maybe baseball continue with this trend of some sort of single game tournament, maybe within the season or something where there's a little bit more at stake, because I think, the NBA has tried to do that with the NBA Cup. I don't know if it's hit as well as they expected. But I think, the numbers don't lie here when we're talking about amount of viewers that are, watching these games. And so, Dr. Jim, I'll ask you this last question before we move on topics. Any final thoughts about any of the international tournaments, whether it's the Olympics or World Baseball Classic or the World Cup coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we doubt. Let me phrase this properly. I think the betting odds would be with the USA if it were a 7-game series, but it's not. And that's why you've got a lot riding on one game and the eyeballs are focused on that. So that they're not going to change that. What I'm curious about is that when Tops Now puts out something, the formula for direct consumer is to put out products that have parallels, inserts, redemptions, autographs that are tough to get. So that's you might get the base card, but you might get that. And the chance, but what I'm curious about is, since every one of these different countries had a different number of sets that were produced, does that make it easier to get the good stuff for Venezuela than you've got a 1 in 34,000 chance with Japan and a 1 in 1,400 chance for Venezuela? Does that kick in? Or is it easier to get parallels?
Yeah, I guess it also depends on, they mentioned that certain players were going to be getting them. I don't know if they're doing, like, if, for example, Japan is going to have more parallels because there was more orders, or if, like you said, if there's only number to 5, if there's only going to be number to 5 for Japan, and then if it's easier for, Dominican Republic, which again, I think that Dominican Republic team is going to, it's unfortunate that they had to go up against maybe one of the best pitchers of all time so far with Paul Skeens, like at least one of the best pitchers right now. Because I think if they had gone up against any of the other USA pitchers, I'm not sure how close it really would have been. Also the pitcher for Detroit, unfortunately, want to play in any other games after. I thought that was kind of unfortunate a little bit. I don't know. I thought the USA had a good shot if they had their best players on the field. And, I think things could have gone a different way easily. Like they could have lost. If they lost the Dominican Republic, that wouldn't have surprised me. And same question to you, Victor. Any final thoughts here on this topic before we move on to what we got up next?
Yeah, that was a great point about Scooble. I can probably go on a mini rant about him there, but I'm not going to. I was interested in, who stood out in the tournament, and there's so many amazing players, so many good performers. But shout out to Michael Garcia, third baseman for Kansas City Royals, who ended up winning MVP of the World Baseball Classic, which is pretty impressive. Like I says, with the amount of people, the caliber of players that were in there. But when you look at his numbers throughout the tournament, it was pretty impressive. His rookie years, 2023, slight little bump in his stuff. I was looking at his stuff moments ago. But definitely a player to perhaps keep an eye on this season.
Right.
Could be
totally
a breakout season for him, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And so we are actually going to be moving from one single game tournament here to the next one. We have got some news right before the start of the NCAA tournament. And I mean, first, before we get into the news, I'll ask you guys, are you Dr. Jim, or Dr. Beckett, are you a March Madness fan, or how's your bracket doing? Like that's kind of how's the bracket doing to start off the topic?
SMU lost before they got in the tournament. That's my team. I felt horrible. I watched that game. That doesn't mean I'm quitting, because I love to watch the games, but
yep.
I don't really fill out the bracket. It's too disappointing for me. I like for the favorites to win, and I like to see good basketball.
Yeah,
occasional
upset,
but it's just a remarkable. Again, they crush it into 2 weeks. I think it's terrific. It's one of the highlights of the sports calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. Victor, how about you? Is your bracket busted, or do you even do brackets? Because I know, like Dr. Beckett said, he doesn't do brackets. How's your bracket looking if you got one?
Yeah, I don't do brackets. I don't really get into college basketball, to be honest with you, till maybe like the final 8 is when I really start paying attention. I just always been more of a NBA pro guy than college, but I do enjoy watching the final games get pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I am maybe the opposite. I am a college guy. I love college football is maybe my favorite sport. And then college basketball is probably a close second or third. Any of the whenever a Boston team's doing well, that's my favorite sport at the time. So the Celtics right now, they're doing pretty well. So I'm excited for them. I mean, I've got Michigan in my one bracket that I took kind of seriously. So they play, I think, at noon today. So we'll see how they do. I mean, as long as they can keep kind of marching on through the tournament, no pun intended here with March Madness, but as long as they can keep going throughout the tournament, they'll be pretty good. But like I said, so before the tournament started, Topps actually announced that they were going to include, for the first time ever, there were going to be men's and women's college players in with NBA players in a fully licensed Bowman product. Now, one thing that somebody pointed out is that this is just Bowman, not Bowman Chrome. So I think that means we're getting a Bowman and a Bowman Chrome product potentially, because in other NIL Bowman products, there was just Bowman Chrome, I believe. So there was paper and Chrome versions of these cards. But I guess we'll see. So, Victor, I'll ask you this first. The combination of the NBA players with the college players, it's obviously a little bit different than it is for baseball when it comes to their Bowman products. So what were your initial thoughts when you saw this news come across the timeline?
Not a fan, Adam, to be honest with you. We're combining a collegiate product with a pro product. And I think I've always been a big advocate for collegiate product. I think there is a segment of the hobby that can really enjoy that type of product. And I thought it was a great move to produce that kind of product. But now we've got the collegiate men, collegiate women mixed with the pro rookies and such.
Mhm.
And it's just, to me, it's kind of similar to the Bowman baseball product. It's kind of confusing because they come out with a Bowman product that has like a Bowman Chrome insert subset included, and then they come out with a regular Bowman Chrome product that looks almost identical to the insert set. So a lot of times it's really confusing to tell what those Bowman Chrome cards came out, what product did they come out of. And I don't know, it seems like they're going to continue doing that here with now. So now if they come out with Bowman U, which I'm sure they will, those first Bowmans, did it come out of Bowman draft picks, or did it come out of this product here? It's going to be very hard to tell. So
right.
Really confusing.
Yeah. And Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you kind of the same question. What were your initial thoughts when you saw this news first come out this week?
Well, Fanatics is still in a battle with Panini for the hearts and minds of collectors, and to grab off perhaps not all women, but to put women in this product is an attempt to be more inclusive. And I think it's a bold move. It is confusing, Victor. You're totally right, but it's the kind of 10xing kind of a move of being more inclusive in the hobby. But my question is, if I look at the box, where are the women? If there's women in the product, where are they? Why are they not on the front of the box?
Right here.
Yeah,
there is one.
Well, she needs to wear her hair out.
It looks like Madison Booker, which I know that there are a couple players who are Juju Watkins, who I think might be hurt right now for USC. I would have probably liked to see her on the cover. I mean, I think she's hurt, so I don't think she's playing. And then I know Iowa State has another player. I forget her name off the top of my head, but is probably going to be a top pick when she comes out to the WNBA. But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with both of you guys. From the confusing standpoint, I guess it's cool that they're including both of these, but in my opinion, I thought the Bowman products really stood out to me because it was a product that was coming out while the players were still in school. And to me, that really made the first Bowmans actually feel a little bit more important. Like the Caitlin Clark or the Paige Beckers or, Cooper Flagg, for example, any of these players that were getting their first Bowmans, it was mirroring baseball in a way, but also much different because, they're not wearing their pro uniforms. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this for sure. Like, I think it's cool that they're including these players all together in the product. I think like Dr. Becker was saying, it's much more inclusive. I think if you're adding them in with NBA players, I think that's very cool. But I do think I personally like the college specific products, especially the way that Topps is doing them now, because I think that we've seen a big shift in what college products have become. Like, going back to 2018, 2019, maybe even 2020, Zion, for example, he didn't get a college licensed Duke card until he was drafted. So once the player's off the team, some of the excitement, in my opinion, kind of goes away. So I don't know. I like that they were doing it with the players that were in school. Victor, I'll ask you that question. Do you think that really makes that much of a difference between if the cards are coming out when the player is at school versus, I guess I don't know when this was going to come out, but for some of these players, they're not going to be playing on their college team when the product comes out. Do you think that makes a difference?
It makes a difference with today's NIL. These kids can probably jump 2-3 teams before the cards even come out.
Right. Right.
But it can perhaps, Adam. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
If I can speak for Victor, I mean, this really messes up Victor's world, in terms of what's the true rookie card.
Right.
I'm very sympathetic. Victor puts in so much hard work, as I did back in the day, of coming up with some guidelines. But the card companies don't go by the guidelines.
Right.
They just do what they want to do. And doing this product and then doing a Chrome version, it's not a cash grab in one sense. It's good business. They're going to make money, but then Victor and other people are going to try to figure out which are the best ones, and the market will dictate. We already know that almost always chrome is better than paper. And we know for the same card, we always know that serial number is better than base, non-serial number of the base of the same card. And so there'll be a hierarchy, but from one product to the next, Victor, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, I think it's going to be on this product. And this is what I don't like about when they advertise, they don't show the back of the card, but I'm assuming now this product, the collegiate players are going to have a collegiate license instead of an NBA league license in the back.
Yes.
And that's a differentiator for me as far as figuring out what's what. And unfortunately, yeah, the chrome stuff carries more weight, but at the end of the day, really what the hobby is really going to want is the autograph, low serial numbered stuff, and the rest seems to like not matter. And unfortunately, and hopefully we can, get that ship to churn someday. Adam, before we move on to the next topic, I'd like to catch up with the chat. They got some good stuff in there. Let's catch up with the chat if we can.
Yeah, sure. So we got Abel. I think Abel in Vegas had a good one. When will Fanatics introduce the tournament patches to Bowman basketball? Now, I do think that they have done some sort of NCAA patch in some sort of Tops Now card that's coming out. I might be potentially mistaken about that. I know that they have cards for the tournament, which I think, again, Tops Now gives, I think, the opportunity for Tops to come out with, like players at High Point, for example, like they, that was one of the upsets from this past couple days that I think they beat Wisconsin potentially. So you're going to be able to include players who maybe aren't going to be in that Bowman set. And I don't know. I know that Tops has done it where if you're in the Tops Now set, you then get included in the next Bowman set. They've done that in the past. I guess I don't know how they're going to do it this time, but either way. Then we have Bob. I'm not a fan of mixed NBA in college. I think, it'll give Victor a headache, kind of like what Dr. Beckett was said with just the amount of the amount of different types of rookie cards, like pre-rookie cards and Bowman next and all of these things. I think, we're getting into a point where maybe things are getting a little bit too confusing for an average person who wants to come in and just, collect cards. Like if they want to just collect the best card, it's almost a conversation of like, how much do you want to spend? And like, where do you think the best card is? Because it almost is becoming a little bit subjective. I mean, Victor, I'll keep going through the comments here. If you want to talk about, the subjectiveness that it seems like with rookie cards nowadays I don't think it's good for the hobby, in my opinion. But what's good and what's bad is kind of, I know, that's subjective. But for you, like as a rookie card guy, do you like that they are sort of muddying the water here with all these different types of rookie cards and pre-rookie cards?
I'll be honest with you, Adam. The longer and more I'm digging into this sort of thing, I don't think it's the manufacturers muddying it as much as the hobbyist muddying it. The new rules were set in place around 2005, 2006. And in hindsight, what they established makes really good sense. The problem is that hobbyists don't want to align themselves with that concept. Mm-hmm. And I think the more and more I dig into this, the more and more I start to believe that's more the issue, because what they established makes sense if you take the time to learn it. Now, it is a little, it makes you scratch your head, but if you take your time to learn what's been established, it actually makes sense. It's just there was a long void of time there where nobody was teaching it, nobody was understanding it. So everybody just made up their own interpretation of what a rookie card is, and I think that's where the waters get muddied the most. I do want to circle back to what Abel was saying with his question about the debut patch. Made me want to look up what Bowman offers as far as chase. They are showing 3 tiers of autographs. There's a gold, which is obviously the superfractor, And then there's a red and a blue autograph version. As far as case hits are concerned, there is an anime type card insert set, and then Garbage Pail Kids is also going to be included as a case hit. So just wanted to share that.
Okay.
No debut patches in this product.
But Victor,
yeah.
Here's what Fanatics has done subtly. I think subtly is that if they were going to put debut patches, they'd have to be redemptions. And in the 2026 baseball product with their 75 best, a lot of those best cards are redemptions.
That's true.
So what they've single-handedly done is make redemptions cool again. You're not ticked off that you got a redemption, especially if 2026 had some redemption cards in there for these debut patches. People would do backflips. They would say, "Oh, it's a redemption. I've got to send in." They would be excited.
Yeah.
So I think redemptions are back with a vengeance, and that allows the set to live and breathe and to be, even like we're saying, more inclusive of what's going on right now. Like I said, the high point guys, these other, if some of this stuff may hit, and we're right in the beginning of March Madness now, but there are going to be some other breakout stars.
Right. Yep, exactly. And I think, unfortunately, DeBonsta, who was one of the BYU players, I think BYU lost. So it may be similar to like a John Morant when he played. I forget what college he played for, but I think he was one and done in the NCAA tournament. I think also Ben Simmons was another one that was kind of a high draft pick that was one of the best players and then gets one and done in the tournament. So yeah, I think the debut patches would be pretty cool. Like I could see them doing that maybe next year. But I do think, I don't know, I think that there's too many teams and there's too many random players maybe potentially to do that, unfortunately. But I think some sort of patch would be very cool. And like you said, Dr. Beckett, it would have to be a redemption because they wouldn't be able to have the product and then, because if they're promoting the product, assuming that probably means it's going to be coming out fairly soon, but they wouldn't be able to do the tournament and then be able to put those patches in there. They would have to be, they would have to be redemptions, obviously.
I'm reading the sheet.
A lot of concern in the chat for Victor and his channel here. So shout out to the comments. We got Orlando. We got
I'll be fine, guys. I'll be fine.
So any go ahead.
Need some more controversy, Victor.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put the link in the chat, which admittedly not something I necessarily always do, but we have a topic here that I think I would be interested to see if anybody wants to call in and kind of give their thoughts on this topic. We are going to be getting into sort of the big news from this past week, which was Whatnot is facing some legal issues over potential back end stuff that they were doing with breaking and repacking. So Victor, what were your kind of initial thoughts here for when you saw this news? Was it surprising to you? Were you not surprised? What were your thoughts on it?
I'm just going to give you an initial thought, and then I want to hear more what Dr. Beckett has to say about it. But I will say this: I've never dealt with Whatnot in any capacity, either buying or selling. I don't get into breaks, so to me, I really can't speak on what is happening inside of Whatnot because I don't know. But with that said, I'll pass it to Jim, and then I'll come back and give some remarks.
I think each of these very large players in the industry has a demographic. I think the demographic for Whatnot probably skews a little bit younger. And so that's what you're dealing with, whereas collectors, fanatics, these others, they also have their ecosystems, their worlds that they want to keep the collectors in. They want a one-stop shop. Once you come into Fanatics Collect or whatever, there's going to be an adjacent offering of they've got all these different things that send you to their breakers, send you to their approved shops, whatever, but mainly to keep you spending money with them. And frankly, it might be that Whatnot is maybe doing a better job of that. if you read the complaints, that they pulled people in and they are enticing them with kind of quasi or legit gambling stuff, not expressly illegal, but some of these younger people, perhaps collectors, and are falling into a trap of getting pulled in, sucked in. Now, here's the big issue here is that Whatnot, the big company, really smart, they have forced arbitration, which is not like going to court. I used to do litigation consulting and testifying in court as an expert witness. And I had some arbitrations. They're very different than being in court in terms of the discovery and the depositions and the affidavits and the amount of time you have to make your case. So these are going to be complicated cases. Some of the ones I've been involved with of things like that, the attorney that represents the plaintiffs is a key decision. I've been in situations where the attorney was not very good, not really up to speed. This is amazing. You have the preeminent attorney in the industry, in our hobby, Paul Lesko, representing these 15 complainants. They'd be like plaintiffs. And so he already knows and is passionately in favor of what's good for this hobby. And so this could be the tip of the iceberg, because this isn't just some attorney out there that we haven't heard about. This is a guy we've tracked with for years, who's opined on all these different cases. And Whatnot is in a tough position, because if they say, we're just going to quietly give each of these persons that Paul is representing, these 15, we're going to give them each $5,000 to go away. Well, that will spread like wildfire. There'll be all kinds of other people. So they're going to have trouble giving money unless it is so super confidential, and even giving money to Paul, who is worth getting something out of this. But Paul's reputation, if he handles this right, he's just going to go on the Mount Rushmore. If he's the protector of the average collector who was pulled into something in over his head. But I think Whatnot's going to take this very seriously. They're going to close the barn door. They're going to resolve some of the non-financial complaints. They're going to do that probably with great fanfare. But I don't think if they offer even $100, there's thousands of people that have participated in Whatnot. They're going to say, I want $100.
Right.
But if some are going to say, I want $100,000. When I heard him interviewed on something, there are people that have been hurt to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. Now, there's some level of personal responsibility a person has, and an arbitration hearing is not like a judge and a jury where there's sympathies. It's more about the law. What did you do? And many of these arbitrators are known for being a little bit establishment leaning. In other words, siding with the big company. And so it'll be an uphill struggle, but I think they're in good hands with Paul. I think this is something that will be settled. I don't think it's going to go to the arbitration, because if you went to the arbitration and you lost, then all of a sudden there's going to be this huge line of people say, I want some of that. But they might give, the only way they could do it, as I'm just thinking out loud here, is that they could not give cash, but they could give some Whatnot bucks, some kind of a thing that, we're not admitting we did anything wrong, and we're not going to be doing this anymore. But for bringing this to attention, we're going to give you a credit against future business with us of reduced fees on something you would do. But they're in a pickle.
Yeah,
they're in a pickle.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think Foul Ball actually makes a good point here. Live shopping or live selling is the future. I totally agree with that. And I think when you are a company like Whatnot and you have grown to this massive size in, only like 4 or 5 years, like I'm sure that they were probably around before pre-pandemic but they are, if not the biggest, one of the biggest live selling, collectibles platforms there is. So like, also the problem with some of the sellers doing what is alleged, if Whatnot did know that they were doing that, that's obviously an issue. But with the amount of sellers, and I've heard people talk about the vetting process of sellers on Whatnot is not very stringent. It's very much just, hey, what are you selling? When are you going to sell it? What's your name? What's your tax information? And then you're kind of on the platform. It's one of the good things about sports cards, and one of the bad things potentially. It's anybody can really start a business within the sports card industry. But, for sometimes that's maybe potentially the worst. That's not as good because you have people who want to, scam like they are doing here. So if Whatnot knew, that's obviously an issue.
Wait, we can't say it's a scam. I mean, I don't think they're doing anything illegal. What they're doing is they're playing on people's sympathies and the passion of the collector. And so it doesn't mean they're scamming. In fact, the live selling may not even be their biggest moneymaker. But what it might be their gateway drug that pulls people into they get enamored of the live selling platform. They're having a great time. Oh yeah, and we got some breaks over here, and we got some other things over here, and you're part of our family here, and we got some gambling, quote unquote, kind of stuff. But fanatics may wind up doing the same thing. They've got gambling, they've got breaking, they've got auctions, they're making the cards, all that stuff. So. But if it's a gateway drug that the live selling is getting people into, hey, Whatnot's my friend. It's a lot of fun there. And hey, I can just click over here and get into this. I made some money on that. I'll put it over here. You have to be a discerning collector. There are too many choices. You can't say yes to everything.
Right. I think sorry, and I just want to say something. I think I was when I used the word scam, I think maybe I was using that a little bit too liberally. It was more of just an overall, I don't know, this word scam was maybe used a little bit in jest. I wasn't necessarily calling it a scam, I suppose. Just to make that clear. So sorry, go ahead, Victor.
No, I wanted to going back to Foulball's comment. Live selling is the future. And so then I asked myself, well, why is live selling the future? And I've never dove into that arena, so I really don't know. But keeping my ear to the rail like I typically do, here's the problem that I have with certain things: is the popularity of live selling is in the going back and forth with the bids, right? People are kind of like sending this card up in value, and you have a lot of people purchasing cards. They're purchasing a $5 card for $20 to $30 or a $10 card for $40, $50. And how long do you think that's going to last before that collapses, before people realize, man, wait a minute here. I spent X amount of dollars here, but it's only worth this much. How long before they actually figure out that they've gotten burned? And
they didn't
it's
get burned. They didn't get burned. They went to the movie. They went to the movies. They saw a reality show. They were entertained, and the price of the movie ticket was $18. And a lot of stuff goes for less. So it's not a sure thing. And that's the excitement. I might get a good deal. I might not, but I'm going to enjoy the process. So they've created something that is, our whole culture all over the world is short attention span and immediate gratification. They're playing into that. And so again, Adam, it's not a scam. It's playing to what people are doing and really perfecting it. But now they're finding out they've been so good at marketing these other quasi gambling products. They're going to have some explaining to do in front of Paul Lesko and these other. I believe there'll be a lot more than 15.
Right. Yeah. Eventually. Well, right. And if I'm going to be honest, I had never really thought of it that way. I have thought of, gambling because I do, bet on sports occasionally. And if, you're going to a game or you're watching a game, it's if you're spending $5, $10, $15, $20 on gambling, that's, how I sort of did view it. Like you said, like if you're going out to dinner you're not sitting there being like, oh my God, I can't. Well, maybe sometimes you probably are when you're going to dinner, but for the most part, you know what you're expecting. You're not like expecting to get any money back if you're going out to dinner, going to the movies or stuff like that. I do think that the live selling platforms need to implement some sort of like comping system from eBay or something, or Card Ladder, or one of these platforms. Because, on one hand, I agree with you, Dr. Beckett, like you're paying for the entertainment and you're buying a card. But I also think that if the seller is saying that this card is worth 2 or 3x, which I have seen many videos on Twitter of people talking about how certain sellers will say, oh, this is a $200 card when it's on eBay, it's selling for $50 pretty regularly. That I don't really like. If the seller's not promoting how much the person should be spending on the card and it just happens to, sell for more, I also think that there should be some sort of safe net for people who maybe they don't know as much. Maybe they don't know how to look up comps. But the other part of this, for my last point here, is the urgency and the short-term auctions. I think it activates something in our brain that, scarcity and the quickness that you have to buy. I mean, you go to websites and you see, oh, there's this offer you can only get for the next 20 minutes or something like that. And that's a pretty often used marketing tool. So it's potentially the same thing here with the cards. It's a give and take here, go ahead, Dr. Beckett.
Adam, when I read the complaint, that's not the essence of the complaint from what I can see. It's not about that I overpaid in a live selling platform auction where I got carried away. It's that I get sucked into these other things to where I had to go into debt and all that. And like I say, if you're paying double or triple of something's worth, and if it's $10 instead of $3 or $30 instead of $15, that's not the essence of this complaint. It's that they were buying into big things. And that's the problem, because nobody's gonna look them up. They're not gonna. They're just in the moment.
Right.
No safeguards. Yeah.
But
yeah,
what they've done
that's maybe just a secondary part of my thoughts on whatnot and the
No,
live selling aspect of it. But
it's what you go into and I go into, because I think, hey, that's where that's really wrong. But people are not complaining about that they're going to win some, lose some. They're complaining that they're losing their homes and marriages and families because they're getting deep into debt because they lost. The next one, I'm sure I'm going to win. And so they double down and all that stuff. And at the end of the all of a sudden their credit cards are maxed out and all that stuff. So to me, that's the essence of what these 15 and others might be saying. Not that I paid a little bit too much. I got swept away in that. No, I got swept away that Whatnot is my friend. And Whatnot is the way I need to concentrate my hobby passion in their system. Because it's not in any way playing into the logic or the analysis. They're completely bypassing that. And so when people sign up for it, they're admitting, I'm going to go into a live selling platform. Anything can happen. And I'm okay with that.
Right.
Jim, let me ask you this on this topic. I read somewhere in an article, I forget where, but it said that Whatnot in October of 2025 had a company valuation of $11.5 billion is what this company's worth. Now, you couple that to the investigation that Congressman Pat Ryan it's gotten the attention of the politicians, and that's a separate issue as far as PSA is concerned. That's what Pat Ryan was looking at. But could this lawsuit raise a red flag even more for government regulation?
To me, this is more serious. I think the Pat Ryan thing isn't going to go anywhere, but we're being challenged as we become self-aware that we need to do our own regulation, and part of this arbitration, these proceedings that Paul Lesko's bringing, are an attempt for us to bring attention to our industry that we don't like the way Whatnot is is handling their business within their ecosystem. They don't want to let us leave. They get, it's like all these gambling sites give you free money for your first bet,
Right.
pull you in. Now again, Adam, I don't think that's a scam, but if again with a younger demographic, they say, hey, somebody's going to give me free money. Hey, and that was fun. I lost this time, but I'm going to win the next time, and all that. So I'm more concerned about this, but I do think that I just think Whatnot is going to clean up their act to a degree, at least give the appearance of doing that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and even the thing that you were saying, Dr. Beckett, like the free money, I saw an interesting statistic that I think a lot of people were overlooking, that it was something along the lines of like the female demographic of gamblers has increased like by like 300%. But like what I think maybe people aren't realizing from looking at that statistic, it's people signing up for it under their spouse's account so they can get more money. Like that's probably more likely
That's
than
part of it. But no. They've made gambling a community event. So
right.
women are more drawn, very generalizing. Women are more drawn to community, that everybody's doing it, and my friends are doing it and all that stuff. So anything that's community, men frequently just, I've got an idea, I'm going to do this and all that stuff, self-reliance, all this stuff. Women frequently do things in groups, and more power to them. But if it's a bad deal, it's a bad deal, whether it's for a man or a woman. And Whatnot is in the business of don't consider whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. It's available right now. You might win, you might lose, and have some fun.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, we're moving really towards, Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. I guess the gambling nature within sports cards, is that something that is more of a recent phenomenon, or is this something that you have seen kind of throughout the history of cards, and maybe now that everything is online, it's just easier? Is it something that has always been in the industry, or is this maybe a newer phenomenon from what you've seen being in the industry for so long?
No, it's like Josh Luber's in the blind boxification of everything. If you open a pack, you're kind of gambling. You're going to pay whatever for the pack, and you're going to open it up, and you might get more, you might get less. So there's no cheating in that. There's no an edge. It's just, you just do it. You open it up, and you might win, you might lose. But what they've done, which is very insidious, and is happening right now as we speak in the participation markets, with Polymarket and what's a Kalshi, those have figured out a way to make it not be gambling.
Right.
So the definition of gambling has being narrowed to where what Whatnot is doing is, that's going to be a big issue in the case for Paul Lesko. Is this, are they gambling without a license? And they're going to say, no, we're doing just like these others. Everybody's coming into it. It's not like if you buy a lottery ticket and if you lose, you just tear up the lottery ticket. No, you bought a card. The card still has value. So there's all these ways to gerrymander the definition. And that's going to be the battle for Paul Lesko.
Right.
And it'll help. It'll help because I think it, Josh talked about the game of the blind boxification. There's a gamblification of everything now.
Right.
Fanatics is moving into that.
Yeah.
It may be that Fanatics does this same playbook of, we got you with the jerseys now, we got you with the lids. We got you with the cards. We have gambling now. You already have an account. We already know what your favorite teams are. We're gonna send you some tips.
Right.
And I'd like to see this settlement that hopefully Paul, caring deeply about the industry, would put some guardrails there. I mean, Victor and I, you probably are too, Adam, but guardrails are important. They don't have to be so narrow that you can't do anything, but they need to, kind of, this is acceptable, this is not.
Right. Yep. And look, I mean, gambling is fun. It's fun. It's going to a casino is fun. Betting on sports is fun. But I think, unfortunately, it is an activity that some people don't know how to stop doing. And I think that in the sports card industry, or just maybe just in general, we're not going backwards. I think now that the toothpaste is out of the tube here, like I think the next step is just going to be education on whether it's, Gamblers Anonymous or any of these things to help people with, maybe people that have addictions to gambling or any of these things. I just think the education process is going to continue to be as important as it has ever. And, Victor, for someone like you, who, I don't know if you have, I guess I don't know if you have an education background, but your YouTube channel is very educational. Do you think that I said the question, we're not going backwards, but where do you think we go next here with maybe some of this stuff with Whatnot or, any of the live platforms when it comes to, I guess, the gambling, but just in general, like, where do you think we go next here in the sports card industry, I guess, from this standpoint with maybe this lawsuit or some of the arbitrations going on?
Well, for one, I want to support Paul Lesko in his endeavor in what he's doing. To me, he's got an obligation to win a settlement for his clients. But I hope that it goes beyond just that. I'm really hoping for change to happen. And I know as a hobby, we've been debating whether the hobby needs regulation or not regulation, or something needs to happen, something needs to change. I think this is a good first step in that process. What happens next, man? It's all in the hands of the arbitrator. I do know that. I think it's going to be a huge decision because it's going to set the tone for the rest of the industry, I believe.
Right.
So,
yeah.
What happens next? I don't know, Adam. Go ahead, Jim.
Again, Paul being a seasoned attorney, he has 15 clients. I believe it is his choice of which one he wants to put forth first. These are separate. This is not a class action. And so he could put a very strong case first or a weak case first, whatever he wants to do. He's an experienced litigator, and he's going to know, because he understands the hobby, what is going to put perhaps Whatnot on the defensive, to bring them to the table, because I don't think they're going to do 15 arbitration hearings. They're going to do one, and both sides are going to hear each other out, and they say, hey, we got a problem, and the plaintiffs are going to say, we're not going to get very much money out of them, but we could get some institutional change that'd be for the betterment of the hobby. And maybe, like I said, maybe they get some Whatnot bucks, but it can't be a public settlement where everybody got a big amount of money, or that's no bueno.
Right.
Yeah, I it's definitely going to set a precedent, I think, here in the industry that maybe we need some sort of precedent set where companies are going to need to make some changes to how they're running their business, potentially to, I don't know, safeguard or add some sort of thing that, can't allow companies to, I don't know. I at this point, it really comes down to what ends up happening. We don't really know what the next steps are, like Victor was saying. We are, kind of coming up here on the top of the hour as well. So I'm going to kind of wrap things up. I'm going to send it back around the horn here. Victor, I'll start with you. Any final thoughts here? Any shout outs you want to give? Let everybody know where they can find you, all that kind of good stuff.
I've got, I was reading a question here by Abel in Vegas. He was asking a question while you were, he says, will you have to be 21 to buy into repacks? Will they lower the age to 18 for repacks? That's a good place to, I don't know what it is now. Can an underage person get into a repack?
I can't imagine. I mean, there's probably some sort of age verification on Whatnot because you need to put in money, but it's, who's to say I don't know. I'm not sure actually. So but that's definitely a good question.
Problem is repacks have a higher floor than you get with opening boxes and packs.
Right.
If they're digital repacks, then what's in the product. Everything's on the up and up. You can see what you're going to get. You're paying $100. You're going to get between $75 and $500. And one person can get $500 and a lot of people can get 75. So you have a limitation in the loss. Whereas with some of these packs you could get, so that's the problem. They're not going to say, hey, you've got to be at least 18 to buy a pack of cards.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Bob Boozle wants to know, how do we pay off the arbitrator? If you know Bob Boozle, you know Bob Boozle.
Big trouble, but Bob Boozle, come on and defend yourself with that outrageous. No, the arbitrators, they get stuff like that, but here's the thing: they're not paid off, and they're paid by both, but they have more frequent business with the large companies. They're never going to get another case with plaintiff ABC, but they're liable because these arbitrators are chosen and they have to be mutually acceptable. So they're not paid off per se, but their bread is more buttered on one side.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I guess, so Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you same question I had for Victor here. Any last thoughts, any shout outs you want to give, what you got coming up? I know you got the podcast. So if you want to give that a shout out, go for it as well.
You just did. But I always like to say thank you, Adam, for being the quarterback and handing off to Victor and me appropriately. And it's been a great Saturday. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, just jump back to you right quick, Victor. You want to give a shout out to any of your channels, any of that stuff?
I give a shout out to you, Adam. Got to check you out on TikTok. You're like taking over the TikTok world. You got a big job promotion with sports card nonsense, man.
Yep.
Remember me on your way up is what I say.
Yeah. Trying my best over here. Yeah, I guess. True RCs. I am going to shout out you, Victor. True RCs. I think that's the handle everywhere. Correct?
Yeah, everywhere.
Okay, right. True RCs. Go check out all the stuff that Victor's got. Go check out Dr. Beckett's podcast. If you want to check me out on TikTok, it's just, Adam Drew Palmer, or Instagram, or posting videos on the Sports Cards Nonsense YouTube channel. So go check that out. I appreciate everybody in the chat here. We will be back next Saturday here on For Collectors for another episode of Hobby Hotline. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to everybody leaving their comments today. Appreciate y'all, and I will see you in the next one. All right,
Jim, you going to Independence?
What?